Hey folks, Coach Patrick here with the Crucible of Hawaii, Ironman 2012, bike and run. I'm going to go through some of the data. I've been looking at it for about 10 minutes here, trying to kind of sort it all out, and I think I've got most of it, but I want to get it right. So just so we have that. Okay, so this is the bike file for Kona 2012. You can see heart rate top in red, elevation in orange, power in yellow. This is the ride out. This is the climb to Hawi and the descent from Hawi, and then the ride back. Things to look at in general. 250 was my target power for the day, and as we look at the entire workout here, hold on. TSS is 266.6. That can't be right. All those sixes. That's bad for me. Normalized power was 239. There's a little bit of extra mileage here, 113.2. I'm not sure what that's all about. But at the end of the day, I was pretty happy. I was hoping to have my normalized power closer to 250 overall. But I think the descent really hurts here in terms of power application. And then my power did definitely fade. I backed off a bit here in the last like 7 miles or so. And so otherwise I feel pretty good, looking on the dotted line at my 250 kind of target. But things did fade there. And so I'm going to take a look at that as well. Compared to, before I compare, let me look into it. So plan was 250, plan was to be steady and really go after it and ride it well. Tailwind at the start, which switched to a headwind roughly about mile 35 here, and then it was pretty windy the rest of the day, especially winds at the end. I was, again, overall pretty happy. I think, let's see, this year, just looking at here, so this is the ride out to the climb in Hawi. It took about 218 this year on 246 normalized watts, okay? If we go back and look at last year's ride, I don't have the elevation, but I do have the distance. So this is mile 53.4 roughly. So we'll do that. We'll drive in here and we'll say mile 53.4. Come in here, one more. That's close enough for government work. So normalized power was much lower, same time. Okay, so 218. So you can tell that I rode basically the same time out to Hawi, but I was pushing. This is 231 normalized, and let's do this here. We'll name this so we have it. All right, this is the climb to Hawi start, and we'll say here. No, that's not it, is it? Come on, Mr. Ride. Sorry, not a fan of the jumping stuff. Oh, 216, so pretty close to the same time. Let's rename this. Um, 245, so 14 more watts normalized. Only got me 2 minutes faster. So definitely a lot windier at the start there in terms of how things faded. After the return trip, after the descent from Hawi, we'll take a look at the return file here, and I'll rename this as well. We return Kona. Okay, that was 212. So I was normalized as 236. VI of 103. A lot quieter at this point in time in terms of really no one else out there. That could be a lot steadier. Average heart rate was 135. And I ended up pushing just 20.8 miles per hour this year. When you compare that with last year, and we say, hold on a second, this is mile, just so I've got it right, mile 66 or 67. So we'll go to mile 67 here, hold on, like that, and we will say all the way to the end, and we'll do rename. Okay, so when we look at this file, this took me an hour and 56 in 11, and I was averaging 21.6 miles an hour. and this year it took me 2:12, right? So basically it took me 16 extra minutes to do that ride back, and I averaged 2:36 normalized this year, and last year I averaged 2:27 normalized. It was a lot windier and a lot harder on the way back. In essence, this tells me like, hey, if conditions had been similar to last year, my bike split would have been 16 minutes faster. In fact, even faster than that because I put out higher watts. But the conditions were as such that I ended up being about 12 minutes slower. So definitely a bike split representative of my fitness. Stepping back for a second, just take a look at the heart rate for the day. Overall ride heart rate in terms of impact on my body from the heat. Overall heart rate average was 134 this year, and last year overall heart rate average was 133. So it doesn't look that damaging in terms of heat effect on the bike. I peaked out here at the heart rate sort of towards and the last the Mount 95 is kind of the last climb of the day before you start descending by the airport. And I peaked out here at, this is 144 beats. This year, I hit 144 beats, again, roughly the same place. I'll have to find the exact thing, 146 again. And this year, I was very mindful of the heat and the fact that I'd worked a lot more, so I did try and shut it down a bit more over the end in terms of conserving my effort. And I should also note that in here, this solid last push, from this kind of descent, I would say this section right here, I did ride a lot harder up to Javi, simply because I'd gotten a penalty, and I knew I'd be sitting down for 4 minutes, so I'd have some time to kind of chill out on the bike while I just sat there. So I do feel like I rode that section a little stronger, but again, the wind was such that it really slowed me down. So overall on the bike, I was happy with my bike execution, and I think I'd be curious to see here this kind of descent out of Javi here. Let's just call it from the top of Javi. Hold on. I may have missed that. Hold on. The top of Javi all the way to the bottom here. That's 12 minutes normalized of 172, right? I'm really curious to know, and my speed was 31.5 miles an hour. I'm really curious to know how much that cost me, in terms of relative overall pacing. If I, 12 minutes at 172 versus 12 minutes at 250, I'd be curious to know what that cost me in terms of my overall, both my VI, but also my my watts. I guess I could look at it and do the math on the others. But my guess is you could probably ride a bit harder into over the first part of the day, knowing you've got this descent of 12 minutes of essentially of recovery before you ride again, in terms of how I go back and do that differently. Now, I entered the run this year. This is my run from, first of all, let me save this so I've got it. And let me save this other one so I've got it. I entered the run this year saying, okay, I want to have a better run than last year. And we'll just go back and look at last year's run real fast here, just so we can see it. And basically, my heart rate peaked out, we'll do it up by distance, peaked out just before Palani, which is a tough little section, and then dropped all day. And I really suffered. You can see my pace just came down all day. I ended up running, overall was 336, average heart rate of 147. But again, that heart rate just peaked up, and this decoupling really killed me in the beginning. So I was set out this year to say, okay, I'm going to do this a little differently. But as you can see, hold on, reality was not as different as I would have liked to have seen. So again, this is 2011, rising heart rate, dropping pace. This is 2012, rising heart rate, dropping pace. Difference is I managed to keep the heart rate down, so the rise was not as dramatic, although it did still rise and then still fall. My pace was definitely a lot, I ran steadier early on in 11, and the heart rate went up too high. So this year, when we let's just look at this first section, to Palani. Let's call it to Palani. We'll rename this to Palani, which is about mile, well, that's not how you spell it, but it's about mile 10 on the day. So we'll do the same here. We'll say Tupolani, hold on. I gotta name it the same way. It's the other one, Polani. There we go. Okay, so Tupolani this year, I ended up. It took me an hour, 1:28:30. Okay, which was I haven't done the normalized graded pace on it, but averaging just about eighths here. It looks like on the dial. Okay, so we go back and take a look at 2011, and we say it took me 1:18 last year, and I was averaging 7:45s. And so the heart rate cost last year, my heart rate was 149 when I got there. This year, sorry, my average heart rate for that section was 149. My average heart rate for this year was 136. And I really felt like I had done a much better job of keeping my heart rate. 145 is kind of my happy place on the run. Hold on a second. Let me get it right. There we go. 145 is my sort of happy place in the run. So I said, all right, I'm not going to get my heart rate above 145 early because I want to be smart and conservative. And my goal was to be able to hold that sort of same effort across the rest of the day. But as you can see, I was simply not able to do that. The pace did eventually drop and really dropped low out here in the 20s. I had some stomach issues as well, and you can see my heart rate dropped. So I definitely suffered at the second half of this run. If we go back and look at last year, my lower sections were, let me do this let's do it by distance. Let's just say mile 22 to 24 last year, I was averaging, 9:46, right? This year, 22 to 24, I actually ran a little faster than that. I had my lower points before. Let's see what my lower point. Let's just do 20. This is kind of the top of the energy lab out. Once you're coming back out, and that was 10:32s. So my lows were much lower this year. Again, I was able to kind of get my heart rate up. So I guess overall, if you were to trend this out, I'd say, okay, like heart rate not as bad of a decline, but definitely a decline. My stomach did go south at the end of the day. But I really feel like that was a function of me still eating, even though I wasn't working as much. I was trying to take in so much fluid. I was so hot in the early point of the run here, where the temperature is not reflected in this scenario. I'd be curious to know, do I have temperature on this bad boy? I do not. I'm not sure. I mean, it was crazy hot. So I think at the end of the day, everyone points to my crazy nutrition plan and says I'm insane for eating that much. And there's always a give and take with that, and I acknowledge that. But I really feel like just the lack of heat acclimatization meant my body, I just couldn't continue functioning under duress. And I think mile 10 is kind of that breaking point in the day where your body says like, hey, this is where heat acclimatization really kicks in. Can you continue to operate when your heart rate is this high and it's that hot out there? And I'm in a place right now in my body where my body says, no, you can't. Whereas in other races, I can. If I go back and, let's see here, if I were to pull up, let me pull up Ironman Texas from this year, which was still a hot day, but not super hot. Hold on a second, I'll pull this up real fast, just as a comparison, just so people can see. So heart rate built across the whole day. I ended up sitting on, let's find the 145. I felt really good about sitting on 145 all day and spent the bulk of the second half there. Pace was very steady. There was no letdowns. It was very simple, very straightforward. Temperature on the day was 80s, low 90s. I think the cost associated with racing Kona is just so different that I haven't been able to get that right yet. Moving forward, I've talked about some of this in my blog. I will definitely, if I'm going to go there to compete, I will definitely figure out a different heat acclimatization strategy, whether it's travel early without the family or do something in a sauna or whatever it is. All of the input I've gotten from people out there has been fantastic. So overall, pleased with my performance. I feel like I had a comfortable swim. I backed it up with a solid bike. Definitely represented the fitness that I brought to the table. I am disappointed that my conservative strategy on the run did not play out as much as I would have liked it to. Be curious to know, what would have happened if I had run my regular 145 heart rate here. Might have earned a little more time, but also probably would have sunk a lot lower later in the day. So I don't think that was really, pacing was not an issue here. Nutrition, I feel like, wasn't an issue. I really feel like I couldn't handle the heat. But of course, I welcome everyone's input as well. So back to the drawing table for next time. Of course, I have to find a way to get into the top 1% to qualify to go back. And 2013 represents some new challenges for me from a training and racing standpoint. So I look forward to doing that and having you guys along with me. All right, thanks so much for tuning in and listening. I hope this stuff was helpful for you. So data geeks who are recapping this for the entire workout, it was 5, 10, 12 or whatever that is. 0.72, TSS of 266.6, which is just not right. 0.72, which does represent one of my stronger Ironman bikes. If you go back and look at 266 TSS and 0.72, if you go back and look at it from last year, I was 0.68, and my TSS is 225. It was just such an easier year to bike last year, and I think that was a little short. So that's a little bit higher on the TSS side, but it was definitely a lot easier last year than years past. And even compare that with my Texas ride, where we have the entire workout was 0.66. My TSS was 215. It was such a fast course. So I feel like I rode well out there on the bike, just couldn't get it done. So overall stats: 266.72. VI of 105, which I am not happy about. But I think if you let me just be a loser here and take the VI. In the beginning it was 1.04, and then after Javi back in, it's 1.03. I would make a case that I'm probably in the 104 to 103 range in Kona, except for that descent, where I would definitely drop an 11 cog on my bike for future racing. On the run side of things, which I would rather simply not talk about, the tire workout 355, which is very slow for me. Average 135 heart rate, average pace 841. Just curious to see last year real fast. Yeah, average 147, so my heart rate average a lot lower this year, but just couldn't get it done. Very curious. Okay, anyway, thanks folks for tuning in. I'll see you guys.